Mighty good sermon this morning. I think that's the best I have ever heard Mike preach. But you won't hear one tonight. Not a good one anyway. But Brother Eddie called me Friday and told me that he was sick, and or he wasn't sick, but he just didn't want to take a chance of exposing anybody to anything. So that's why we're doing what we're doing today. And I called Miss Janice yesterday afternoon and left a message. She called me back, and I told her, just whatever she could do to get it together. And I think she's done a pretty good job on last minute notifications. But I just had, there was a verse in one of the Sunday school lessons a couple of 3 weeks ago, or 4 or something, I don't know how long, and it just struck a nerve with me. And I told Vicki, I wished I'd been able to teach that Sunday because I had some stuff about it. So I went back, and this really come to mind as we were thinking about, as I was thinking about what to do for tonight. And it's the 14th chapter of Proverbs, and it's just the 10th verse. I'm going to do a quick devotion, and if like Miss Janice said, I want y'all to just be thinking, and before we leave tonight, if you can just stand up and say, thank God for just having me here today. Or thank God for having me in the presence of my brothers and sisters in Christ that are dear to me, or whatever. Or thank God that Jerry didn't talk very long. Whatever it is, just do it. But 2 words stuck in my mind about this as I was thinking about it during the lesson. And I don't want to take anything out of context, but it's the 10th verse. It said, the heart knoweth his own bitterness, and a stranger doth not intermeddle with his joy. And the heart and joy are 2 things that really stuck with me that day. And I know this verse, what it really is talking about is that people really can't understand the bitterness that we have sometimes. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story that will kind of explain why I'm saying that. But if you understand the context for which this is written, I think Solomon's trying to tell his son that there's things that's going to happen in your life that's going to make you bitter. You're going to have some bitterness. You're going to have some things in your life that makes you sad or really makes you bitter. And sometimes it might make you mad with God. And I'm going to tell you a little story about that. Really, it took me a long time to get this bitterness out of my heart. And you will never understand it unless you have been there. I can tell it millions of times, but you just don't understand the depth of bitterness sometimes. And then we're going to talk a minute about joy. And the story is about my dad. He was 58 years old when he died. I was 21 years old. And I had been working with Rhodes for a year. That was my last year of college. I put it that way because I worked for different people, learning how to be a better farmer. So that was my college. Well, in 1977, at the end of 76 was when I quit Rex and went on, started farming my own. My dad was retired, and I was going to do the farming, but he was going to, kind of help me out. You always want somebody to be your guidance and to help you out. And me and my dad were real close. Well, that was in January. Well, in February, he passed away from a heart attack. And I really got bitter with God at that time, because that just ruined my career, my plans. It ruined everything that I had planned. And I stayed bitter with God for a long time about that. But as I got older and I got to seeing things that transpired in my life, I got to understanding it a little bit better. And then me and God's had a long talk about that. And he forgave me for having bitterness. But, it was deep. It was real deep. I was kind of like Mike said this morning. Y'all remember he said sometimes we just go through the motions and we're just here doing it, but we're harboring bitterness sometimes. But sometimes he gets the best of you. Well, I was still going through all the motions of going to church and being faithful and just doing what I should. But I still had that bitterness. And I don't know exactly when this took place. But just one day I woke up and I said, you know, why am I so bitter with God? And I look at the things that I missed with my dad that was bad. And for y'all that have had to take care of parents or loved ones physically and mentally, you probably understand a little bit more about what I'm saying now. And I'm not saying those things what changed it. It was my relationship with God got stronger and stronger and stronger. And then I started realizing the joy of my relationship with God. And as deep as that bitterness was, the joy is even as deep or deeper. And it replaced that bitterness. And now this verse talks about that the joy that I have with God, I can't even describe. You can't imagine the joy that I have knowing where I'm going to go. And Alex, I believe if I had woken up this afternoon from watching John Wayne with the song you sung, I think I would have looked around and seen if anybody was there. Because I believe I would have thought I'd been in heaven. That was good, but it brought to mind that. But I'm going to ask a couple of questions. If I ask you, are you happy? Or are you joyful? Now, there's two different words, but there's two different things about happiness and joy. You know, you can be happy. Situations is what causes happiness. You know, you can be happy. You can, like Mike said again this morning, talking about grandkids. When I laid eyes on our first grandchild, not only was I happy, I had joy. And there's times that, I hate to say this, and y'all probably would too, there's times that I'm not really happy with Jackson. He's our oldest. And it's probably because Dickie said he does a lot like his papa. And that might be the times that I'm not happy with him, because he does act that way sometimes. I think it's his grandma, but anyway. Yeah, Gaga. But you know, there's a lot of difference, but I'm always joyful that I got it. And my other two the same way, all three of them. But there's a difference in being happy and being joyful. Mr. James Bryan, he always made the statement, and I've heard him preach it several times. Do you really enjoy the joy of your salvation? Have you lost the joy of your salvation? It's a wonderful phrase. But if you've got joy, can you really describe it? The relationship that you have with somebody, with God? It's that deep, isn't it? It's hard to explain. And I know that we got 3 kids in here. I call y'all kids. Alex, Dr. Alex, you're still a kid. Okay. You'll always be that way to some of us. But all of us in here that are married, we can't describe really how we feel about the person we're married to. We can try however we want to, but it's so deep in us, it's really undescribable. Sometimes we probably take it for granted of the joy that we have with those people, our spouses, because of what they mean to us. And I wonder sometimes, do we take the joy of our salvation for granted? You know, prayer does change things. It really does. I was on the tractor the other day digging peanuts, and you know, it's been a challenging year again. Every year challenging it before. And Dennis called me, and he was having a challenging day. He was picking. He said, "Daddy, have you heard the weather report?" I said, "No, I hadn't heard the weather report." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Well, they say we got a storm in the Gulf. Well, it's way down below, but it's going to be coming up in the Gulf, and it's going to come across part of Georgia. There's a chance that we're going to get a lot of rain." I said, "Well, let's just pray that thing away." He said, "Well, that sounds like a good idea." I said, "Well, let's do it. What's wrong to just say, I'm going to pray that away?" And I don't know whether it was what I prayed or what somebody else prayed, but I know I'm not the only person that felt that way that day. But that joy that I have with my relationship with my God, I just said, okay, God, it's you. We don't need this. And you told us in your book, you told us that if we have a need, bring it before you. So I just started praying that. The other day when they mentioned about Dennis Phillips, it hit me again. I said, you know, Dennis Phillips can't survive this. He is a person at risk, high risk. He can't survive this thing. I said, you know, the church, the one call went out and Dennis has asked for prayer. I said, you know, I wouldn't say that I was obligated to do it, but I felt the need to do it. And I'm not saying that my prayer is any better than anybody else's, but I pulled that old joy back out and I said, you know, God, you got this. And, you know, when they got the call, was it yesterday or the day before, that Dennis was doing better, I said, praise God. I said, look what he did there. I said, and as that storm started moving, I prayed for the people in the path that I don't think the storm was near as bad as they had predicted, was it? It went, yeah. But I'm talking about not for us, but for them either. It wasn't nothing like what it could have been. So, you know, what is, are you happy or are you just joyful? Which is the best? And I got one more question, and then I want y'all to help me. I want y'all to talk to me. That's what I want you to do. Then Miss Nancy's got a beautiful song that I think ends it all for us tonight. This question is your relationship with God better now than 5, 10, 20 years ago? Is your relationship better? Do you feel that joy? Do you feel that relationship that you can go to God and just say, you know, I don't, like Mike said again, I keep going back to his sermon because it really touched me this morning, that he kept mentioning, you know, why are we worried about all these? I know we should be concerned because the Bible teaches us, you know, pray about everything, and that's what we should do. But we shouldn't just pray and just say, okay, I prayed it and that's it. We should say, I'm praying this in the name of God. God's got it. Whatever the outcome is, I'm going to live with that outcome, no matter what. Yeah, I'd like to see, I wish they would just listen to me and let me straighten them out. I think we could do a much better job. The first thing I would do would, like Miss Janice said, I'd stop abortion dead in its tracks. One of the most disgusting things that has ever happened in this nation, in this world. It's awful. But that'd be my first act. I'd stop that. Second thing, I'd make everybody go to church. I'd make everybody hear a good sermon from a good Baptist preacher. Somewhere. If they didn't want to do that, they'd have to handle snakes. I'd make them get faith somewhere down the line. Yeah. But the question is your relationship better? Is it? Is it any better than it was? Is things happen in your life? I go back to my story about my dad. You know, my relationship, had my dad lived to be, he would have been 102 this year. Back in July, he would have been 102. And he spent that time in World War II. He was a little bit older than 16 when he went in, but he did. But I think of the things that I missed that I don't miss. I think of the things that I missed that I would have liked to have had. But my relationship with God is so much better because I know that where He is, I will be too. And one day I'll get to tell Him, you know, Dad, I missed you. But I'm glad you taught me that I need Jesus in my life. And I'm glad I got it. So I hope something's been said that, you know, that your heart is full with joy. It's indescribable. Indescribable. What's the proper word? Indescribable. It's indescribable.
Who can describe it?
That's right. You can't describe it fully. You can show somebody and you can halfway do it, but you can't get the full attention of what it really is. One day these girls here are going to realize they're going to find that right mate. And y'all going to walk up to your mom and dad and you're going to say, I understand now what it means. And one day when you get grandkids, you'll understand that. It's a horse will do. Right?
One day,
Well, I've said all I need to say. And now I want y'all, somebody to tell me, is your relationship closer? Is it better? Is your heart full of joy? You don't have to try to describe the whole thing, but as things happen to you that makes you really realize how good God is and how close you are to Him, can you see where you prayed and it was answered? Anybody know?